Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Steel Forum. I'm Nick Coffey, and today we're going to talk about the 7 steps to getting paid. Getting paid is one of the hardest things that you have to do as a detailer, especially when you've made that jump from working in-house for a fabricator to going on your own. So today we'll talk about how to get that sweet, sweet money out of your customer. All that coming up on the Steel Forum. You got your anchor bolt drawings done, you've got your details perfect, every weld in place, every bolt through a hole, every hole with a bolt, and now it's time to get that sweet, sweet payoff. So, how do you do it? How do you get that money? Well, we're going to talk about the 7 steps. The first step, number 1, the most important thing you can do, in my personal opinion, is to set your terms. What does that mean? So, before you get the project, you need to make sure that you have a contract with whoever it is you're working for. Make sure that in that contract, and we'll talk about more about contracts in another episode, but you want to make sure that you have payment terms, that they're clear, that they're concise, and that they're what you actually expect, and that they're understood. So, make sure that when you put your payment terms in, that your client has actually acknowledged them and agrees to them. Just sending them something that says, hey, here's how we want to get paid is not good enough. They do have to respond and say, your terms, your proposal, whatever else, in whatever way you want to deal with it, have been accepted. And make sure that they're clear. Don't, say that you want 30-day terms and then ask for 15-day terms later. If you need 15-day terms, say it. Divide up your billing. Don't expect to be paid 100% at the beginning of the job. A lot of fabricators aren't going to be comfortable with that. Neither should you. If you get paid way ahead of time, then later when you have to finish that project, you might not have budgeted properly, and finishing that job is no longer financially viable because you made bad decisions. So don't put yourself in that situation. Set up your terms so that you're getting paid appropriately at different points of the job. That's number 1. Make sure you set your terms, make sure they're understood and agreed to. Number 2, once you've sent that invoice, you have to work the system, the fabricators. Every fabricator has different payment procedures. Some of them, it's as easy as you send your invoice to the project manager, they walk it down to accounting, put their name on the line saying, hey, this is approved, and it gets paid. But for a lot of them, it's a lot more complex. Sometimes, the project manager can't actually handle the invoices, and you have to send them to somebody else. Sometimes, it's got to go into accounting. Sometimes they need a mailed copy or something else. Try to be accommodating to find those solutions. So once you send an invoice in, don't just wait for that payment. Make sure that they've received the invoice, that there's nothing else you have to do. Ask them, hey, is this in your system properly? Is there anything else I have to do? So that when your payment comes due, you're not shocked when they say, oh, you didn't send your invoice to the right person, so we're not going to get paid. Because for a lot of fabricators, that's a game they play where they're trying to delay your payment as long as possible. But for a lot of them, it's a legitimate thing. You have to follow their procedures properly to get paid. And you don't want to wait till the last minute to do that. So number 2 is work the system. Make sure that whoever you've given that invoice to has received it and sent it to the right person. Number 3, follow up. You can't just let your invoice go in and then wait for the payment to come. Even after you've gotten the setup properly and that you've sent it to the right person, you have to make sure that they're working to get your payment so that you're not shocked later when no money has come in. Now, for that, we have this one fantastic hint. When you send your invoice, there is a service called Follow Up Then. You can check them out at followupthen.com. When you send your email, you can BCC whatever the payment term is, and then at followupthen.com. So, for instance, if you have 30-day payment terms, you'd say 30 days at followupthen.com. You BCC them, and 30 days from now, when that invoice comes due, you'll get an email back from followupthen.com saying, hey, you need to follow up with them. So that's also a great service for RFIs and transmittals and all those other things, but it's particularly fantastic for invoices. Make sure you BCC them. Then when you get that back, hey, it's time for me to follow up then. So use that service. It's fantastic. If you have something similar, if you want to set an alarm on your calendar or your phone, or if you want to use one of the many, many, many invoicing websites out there that will do the follow-up automatically, we don't like to do that. It just kind of feels small-time-ish to us. We like to follow up personally. But make sure that you are following up so that you're not surprised when your payment does come in, and then you get upset for no good reason because everybody's trying to do their best and we're all pretty busy. Number 4, and I cannot emphasize this enough to steel detailers in particular, be professional, okay? Do not take this personally. The number of things that get in the way for a fabricator to pay you, the person that you're dealing with, the project manager, might be great. They might really want to get you paid, but there's, something in their way that they are trying to deal with. Don't get personal. Don't start to attack people. Don't get angry. I mean, you can get angry, but don't show your anger to the people that you're dealing with. Of course, you're going to be angry. You need that money to pay for software, employees, or whatever else. But you have to be professional. A lot of detailers tend to fly off the handle or, just go crazy when they haven't been paid. Now, I love the thought. You need to get paid. Make sure you're getting paid, but do it professionally. That's the only way to keep your ball moving forward, and to make sure that, if the customer is trying to do their best and is just screwing up, you don't ruin that relationship. So that's number 4. Number 5, understand your customer's problems, okay? If they have a system that they're trying to work through, if they're trying to get you paid and it just takes a little bit of time and effort, work with them. Now, don't jump through their hoops, make sure you stick to your terms and all those things, but do try to understand that they may be facing similar challenges. Now, some of those challenges are not your problem. If they have not been paid, that's not your problem. If they, are short on money, not your problem. And you need to be clear about that. But if it's a matter of they screwed up, they dropped the ball, whatever else, they need a little help, a little time because whatever. Make sure that you accept the fact that they may legitimately be trying to pay you and try to get them to work with you as much as possible. Don't go crazy, and make sure that you are coming to them from a place of understanding. It's, just like dealing with a spouse or anything else. Just because you aren't getting what you want doesn't mean that they're not trying their best. Number 6, this is where things start to go a little bit more aggressive. You haven't been paid. It's clear that they're not trying to pay you. They're giving you the runaround, whatever else. Don't be afraid to stop the work. Put their stuff on hold. Tell them, hey, it's nothing personal, but until you get me paid, I cannot continue to work on the project, and it's going to cause delays. And make it clear, too, that, hey, these delays are not my problem, okay? This is not something I did. It's not a choice that I made. It's the fact that you haven't paid me, and thus I cannot continue to work. And make it also clear that just because they someday do pay you does not mean that that same day you're going to be back on their job and that they're not going to suffer any more delays. If you have to start another project in the meantime while their project is on hold, make that clear right from the get-go. And also make it clear before you stop work that if you do stop work, it's not a, you were 3 days late paying me, so your project was held up 3 days. It may be you're 3 days late paying me, so I started another job, and it's going to be 2 weeks before I can get back to yours. Now, when I say it's 3 days late paying you, if you stop a customer's work because they're 3 days late paying you, you're going to have a bad time. Make sure you're reasonable. But also make sure that they understand that your stopping work does not give them the right later to demand that you put in overtime to catch up the schedule, that you get back on their project immediately, or any of those other things. It is not your fault that they did not meet the terms of your contract. Then the last thing, the last-ditch thing that you have to do is you've got to be prepared to write a lien. Make sure that before you start a project in a new state, that you understand their lien laws and how they work. Sometimes, subcontractors, two subcontractors can't file a lien. Sometimes you have to notify everybody of your intent to file a lien before you actually do. Sometimes you have to do that early in a project. Sometimes you have to do it within X number of days when you've finished your project. That's usually how it's set up, is within, say, 90 days of the last time you did any work on the project and you haven't been paid, you need to notify everybody down the chain of the fact that you intend to lien the project so that then they're not blindsided, 6 months after they think the job is done with a lien. So make sure you follow all those legal requirements. Start with the GC, start with an owner, start with an email, and then follow up with a registered letter. We'll get more into liens and what they mean and how to do them and all that stuff later. Hopefully you're not getting to that point. We have, from time to time, had to do that with customers who just refuse to pay, but it's not something we like to do. It's not something that really anybody should be liking to do. But you should expect to be paid. Do not just roll over and allow a fabricator to walk away without paying you. You have to follow up for the good of detailers everywhere, because every time a detailer just rolls over, a fabricator thinks that, hey, that's okay. I can just not pay my detailers. I can trump up some, BS back charge that nobody ever heard about until that bill was due. And all of a sudden, now I don't have to pay you anything, and I'm just going to stick with that. So make sure for all detailers everywhere you are getting paid. Make sure for your employees, for your children, for your families, that you're getting the money that you deserve. You worked for it. Now go get it. Follow those 7 steps, and most of the time, you are going to get paid. Good luck, and we'll see you next time on the Steel Forum.